edition of Racing World. Well, here we are on the iconic back straight of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, used just 1 week ago for the Indy Grand Prix. Boy, oh boy, the speed limit was a lot different then. It's down to about 20 mile an hour now, as opposed to the 150, 160 miles an hour that it was only a week ago. Transformed. The track now, obviously, in its oval configuration, and today in this show we're looking at qualifying. Day one of qualifying happened on Saturday. Day two happens on Sunday. To explain the qualifying format to people who aren't aware of it, on day one, the fastest 12 then go through to day two to run in a top 12 shootout, if you like, and then it becomes a top six. Winner of that becomes the pole sitter for the 109th running of the Indy 500 presented by Cambridge, and they walk away with $100,000 US for the honour and glory as well. Then on the other side of the equation, the bottom four, they race out for those last three positions. So someone at the end of today will be going home, and their Indy 500 for 2025 is over and done with. Those four in the back row shootout will be New Zealand's Marcus Armstrong, more on him in a minute, Rinus VeeKay, Marco Andretti and Jacob Abel. So could be quite interesting. I'm picking that Abel as probably the weakest of the four, but we will see. As for the fast 12, it could go all sorts of ways. McLaughlin very quick yesterday, Dixon quick, Palau obviously the fastest. That set that time on the first day of qualifying, but it really doesn't mean anything. All you need to do is be in that top 12. But the day started out in practice, just a short practice session in the morning. The conditions were very cold, but not mega cold, but the wind gusts were very strong, but like a Wellington wind really. It was coming at you, big strong puffs of wind. Not to say that that was the fault of the thing, as you'll hear from Marcus shortly, but Marcus Armstrong became the first casualty of the day, tipping it into turn one, hit the wall quite heavily, did a lot of damage to the car, and resulted in the fact that the car was written off, and they had to build up from a road course spec car that they had into a race car, and they had to do that on that day. So Armstrong's crew worked just miracles to get him back in the car for later in the afternoon to have an attempt at qualifying, which he sadly only fell into the bottom four, hence why he's back into this last row shootout today. For Marcus though, it was one hell of a day. I got to talk to him at the post end of day press conference and just talk to him a little bit more about the events of the day.
Marcus, the first thing, obviously a big question, particularly from people in New Zealand, are you okay?
I am okay.
Physically?
Yes, physically I am okay. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm a bit sore in the morning. To me it felt like a bigger hit than what it looked on the TV, honestly. But the AMR safety crew was on top of me in record time, so I think that truck they have was going quicker than Alex Palou today. So I'm pretty lucky that they were there. But yeah, I'm good as gold, mate. I'm ready to crack on tomorrow.
Good stuff. You mentioned it as well, and I was standing outside your garage for quite a bit of the day, just watching what was going on, watching the team from HRC there as well, working on the car. Everyone there, Kiwi Steve Goff was in amongst it as well. That was an enormous effort to make that transition to the road course car, which effectively would have been your Detroit car, or is your Detroit car. Unbelievable control out of those guys as well, wasn't it, from them?
Yes, I don't think anybody expects a crash like that to, destroy a tub. Obviously, it happens from time to time. I don't know what Colton had to do there, but we didn't have the car built up at all, so they pretty much put it together. As they were rolling me out, they were still putting together like the headrest, and I was questioning whether or not the seat was like still intact after the crash. We hadn't tested that, so like just the real basic things we'd like forgotten about because we were just so in a rush to get it done. But they got it done, and the car was definitely in a decent window where we can work on for tomorrow.
And just one final thing, just while that's happening, obviously you're removed from the garage. You've got lots of other things going on for you personally at that point in time. What's the biggest thing that goes through your mind? Like, is it about getting back out there straight away?
Well, initially I just hoped that the car wasn't completely written off, which was the case. And then secondly, it was whether or not they'd let me drive again, because I had to do a bunch of tests, concussion tests and all of that. So there was two things that we got around ultimately. And the third one was just the conditions, hoping that the wind wouldn't get any worse, or, perhaps the track temp would come down and give me a bit of a hand. But yeah, tough conditions today for sure.
Well, we wish you all the very best for tomorrow. You're going to get in the show, that's for sure.
Well, certainly a big day for Armstrong and the MSR team. They had a lot of things going on. They had issues with Elio's car as well, but for Marcus, that was a bit of a, we'll call it a rude awakening and welcome to Indy. Hitting the wall at Indy is a very unforgiving thing, and he's now added that to his resume of things. But it has to happen. Eventually, every driver goes through that type of scenario, so it happens to them all. Anyway, back to that first day of qualifying, which took place, started at about 11 o'clock local time and ran through to 6 that evening. And the first of the Kiwis out on track, which I think was the 8th runner overall for the day, was New Zealander Scott Dixon. Now, the wind was still playing a very big part in what was going on during that qualifying. If you struck it right, you got some dips in the wind. If you didn't, then you got the big strong gusts. And the difference over Fast Friday, the day before, was that the wind was going across the track as opposed to being either a headwind or a tailwind. So you got the wind affecting you in the short shoots, and it made a pretty big difference as to how the car would perform, particularly out of turn 1 and into turn 2, which many drivers regard as the hardest corner on the track. And after his run, we got to talk to Scott Dixon and get his views on that. Today, with the crosswind as opposed to the tailwind that you had yesterday, is the crosswind harder to drive in?
Yeah, all difficult. It just really makes one or two corners, stand out. I think the difficulty today is the gusts, so it's kind of not very predictable. You might have a 15 or 20 mile behind you, and then the next lap you might have a 35 or 40 mile. So it really, changes the way that you turn into the corner. And again, turn 2 is typically the hardest corner. You've got a kind of a elevation you come off of and come down into a crest, and then you get in the wind up behind you. So it's pretty sketchy.
And then do you notice that gap in the grandstands there, just the other side of the museum?
Yeah, luckily for me, I think the gap is kind of when you get the front starts to understeer, because it's right up behind you, and then some of the wind is maybe actually helping turn the car on the exit. But if you're quite neutral, it's going to make it pretty tough on you.
That's cool, man. Thank you. Looking a lot more comfortable than what he did this time 12 months ago, and he knows he's in the 12, so he knows he's in the game. How it will play itself out, not quite sure yet, but today is a different day. Today is the day where that 12 becomes 6 and the 6 become 1. Bragging rights for a whole week, and you've got to love that. So he was in. Then about 7 or 8 cars later, Scott McLaughlin had a go, and he was out there. Very, very strong gusts of wind during McLaughlin's time on track, and I was surprised that he ended up being as quick as he did. He's provisionally on position 2 going into this Fast 12 shootout later on. Now, the thing also to remember on the Fast 12 shootout is it's slowest to fastest, so the fastest person runs last. So there is a bit of there's a bit of knowledge that comes by doing that, so it puts them in a good place, whereas Dixon's kind of in the middle, but that's not too shabby either, so they're both in good spots. Anyway, the thing that I asked McLaughlin was exactly the same thing that we talked to Dixon about the strong gusts and whether they were effective. Scott, first up, during your run, we ended up with a lot more wind gusts than we'd seen, say, with Alex Palau's run. Yeah. Does it affect you out of that short shoot across towards the museum and back to the back straight?
Yeah, you definitely feel it. I saw the wind just as I left, and I was like, oh, those flags have picked up for a little bit longer, so I saw them when they were out on his run, and they were a little bit down. So once I went out, I was like, okay, well, I just got to get ready with my tools and be ready for it. And I felt like I had a really good run. I just hit the limiter going into turn 1 there, and that really cost me a lot of speed. So I think we're going to be easily being in the 33s the whole time, which bodes well for tomorrow.
Yeah, it's just about staying in that 12 today, really, isn't it? That's the main thing.
Yeah, I think that lap's pretty good. I mean, we can definitely go faster if we need to, but I don't think we need to.
You just keep that car there, mate.
Absolutely.
So that's hearing from the Kiwis, but the thing about it, at the end of the day, Alex Palau went out there, and of course, just like this whole season's been really for Alex, he ended up putting the car on the provisional pole. It's not a pole as such, as I've said, and it will all change by the time this day is over, and we'll hear about that as the day unfolds. But for Palau, it was also a bit of a dream run, because across the entire day, really, yesterday, the wind was so gusty, and when Alex went out, that wind just disappeared. So the Indy gods were certainly favouring him, that's for sure. Going into this pole shootout, who am I thinking that might be a one to watch? I'm thinking Pato O'Ward, very strong yesterday, very determined. He's been runner-up here in this race, very focused, and suddenly McLaren are performing. So I think that's worthy of note. Robert Schwartzman in the Premier entry, he deserves some praise as well. Prema's first time at the Oval, first season in IndyCar, and Schwartzman's never driven on an Oval before, and here he is, he's in the Fast 12. So no matter how far he goes, you know, that is an amazing performance for a rookie, so that's a great thing. Now just clarifying again, those 12 run for the Fast 6 and then they run for pole. Those positions then come locked in based on what they did. Positions 13 through 30, they're already in place from yesterday, from the first day of qualifying, and they stay. So those drivers are out of the equation come the second day of qualifying today. Then those back four, they're going for that last row, and one of those drivers, as I said, will go home today. Fingers crossed it's not Marcus Armstrong. He deserves to be in the race. Very, very gutsy performance by Armstrong to get back in the car yesterday. Well, that was day one of qualifying, but of course day two was to follow on Sunday. The skies dawned clear, the temperature was good, and the wind had disappeared. So it was a fantastic day for what was to become a very, very dramatic day. Started out with an early afternoon, late morning practice for the cars that would go through to the sessions today, and the first casualty became New Zealand's own Scott McLaughlin. He set a blistering time early in that session, and then it just went one pace too far. He smacked the wall into turn one and ended up in turn two, as most of those crashes do because of the momentum from them, but did substantial damage to the Yellow Submarine, so much so that Penske are now pulling a backup car, and McLaughlin will be out on track on Monday for the 3-hour session that the teams have there and get back into it. And he will start from that third row of the 500 on Sunday. So that was one Kiwi. It's two Kiwis in a row that have suffered consequences into turn one. I'm starting to think that the hybrid unit and the weight transfer into turn one does have a part to play. But there was more to come, much, much more. There was drama before the top 12 shootout when both Penskes were failed teching, or one Penske failed teching, that was Will Power's one, and then Team Penske withdrew Joseph Newgarden's car. Now, the accusations were flying everywhere. There was all sorts of things, but the bottom line fact was that they had used an area where the attenuator is, which you can see in this picture, where it attaches to the back of the gearbox housing. Now, that is a body fit part because the attenuator is a safety structure and it's to be bolted to the back of the car. They had planed that area to create a more smoother aerodynamic surface and then filled it with a filler and then planed it again. This got pulled up in teching. There's an interpretation from the team saying that they felt that they could do that. There's an interpretation from the rules saying that you can't do that. Bottom line is that they didn't start in the top 12. You can take it whatever way you like, depending on whether you're a fan of the team or not a fan of the team. Pato O'Ward, he certainly had plenty to say on it.
They weren't accidentally doing it because they had the blowtorch right there in order to get it out. So, I feel for Abel and for everybody that did the disqualifications or the last chance qualifying. If those cars weren't in regulations, I'm not an engineer, so I can't tell you what they were doing, how much speed that is, or if it is any speed. But obviously, it's not in regulation, and the rule is pretty black and white. And those cars should have been in the last chance qualifier. Like those cars should have never, obviously they didn't do anything in the Fast 12, but they should have been brought into the LCQ because they had that yesterday, I guarantee you, and until someone pointed it out today. So those cars, if they're disqualified today, they should have been disqualified yesterday. So it's a shame, really, because I don't think they don't need to be doing that stuff. Like, they're a great team. They've got great drivers. Why are you doing that?
Good on Pato for saying what he said, because many were probably thinking it but were afraid to say it. And the young Mexican, he certainly spoke his mind on the matter. But the bottom line fact is that the Penske cars will start on row 3, the reverse of last year where they all started on the front row. But you can win from row 3. So McLaughlin, Newgarden and Power are still in this game and still likely to be potential winners of the race come Sunday. So that's just the way it plays itself out. Dixon securing position 4 after the top 6 shootout. More on that in a minute. But of course the next attention turned to the last row shootout, LCQ as they call it, last chance qualifiers. And it came down to the 4 cars of Marco Andretti, Marcus Armstrong, Renus VK and Jacob Abel. As I've said all along, I felt that Abel was the weakest of the field this year, and as it turned out, it played out that way. He fought it out with Renus VK for a while, but at the end of the day, Jacob Abel was the one that's going home on the Monday. So that was that. Marcus did one run, got himself through, and I had the chance to talk to him out on the grid area as soon as that qualifying run was over.
The emotion today like never before?
I wouldn't say that. I'd just say that I'm happy that it's over, honestly, because yesterday was tough. We put it in the wall at 390 k's an hour, and then we had to get back into a car that we didn't know was balanced or anything. So I'm pretty happy that it's all done and we can work on the car on Monday and get it right.
Good job, brother. Good job.
Then perhaps the sensation of the entire qualifying period happened just after that, the top 6 shootout. There was much sort of anticipation about how this was going to happen. It was running later in the day. The air temperature was fantastic. The track conditions were fantastic. No wind. A lot of the track now shadowed because of the way the sun was starting to set, because of it being that much later. But in the end, we had a new sensation that came out of that, and that was Robert Schwartzman, who many would have seen in New Zealand in 2018 in the Toyota Racing Series, as it was called then. And here was Schwartzman with the rookie team Prima, rookie driver who'd never driven on an oval before, taking pole at probably one of the world's greatest races, the Indianapolis 500. So Schwartzman becomes the new pole sitter for 2025. And boy, oh boy, I just found myself wrapped up into the excitement of it all and pushed into the team huddle, as these pictures will show. Certainly pretty fantastic moment. It's great to be a part of that, and I don't really even know how it happened, but I just ended up being pushed into the huddle. But great stuff, such emotion from the team. But like anything, you've got to convert that pole now over to a race win the following Sunday. So you can be a hero one Sunday and you can be a nobody the next. So let's wait and see how that plays it out. For New Zealanders, Scott Dixon will start 4th in the race on the inside of the second row. I think that's a good place to be, actually. I think that's a really good place to be. McLaughlin will be back down in 10th after not being able to make that run after the accident in the morning, and then Marcus is back on that last row. But that's still, you can win from anywhere in this thing, so the Kiwis are still in the game. It's going to be a great race. Weather forecast is looking kind of okay. We're in for rain for the next couple of days, and then it should clear again. Temperatures will be very similar to what we've seen, cooler rather than the hotter heat. So it's going to be a very exciting race. We'll be bringing you coverage both on carb day and then race day as the week progresses. But for now, sensational qualifying at the Indy 500. Thanks for watching Racing World. Don't forget to share, like and subscribe, and we'll have more for you in just a couple of days. Well, I'd no sooner finished that podcast, and at 11:15 here in Indiana this morning, the world changed a little bit. There was a press conference, and it announced that there was more infringements or more penalties coming to the Team Penske cars of number 2 for Newgarden, number 12 for Power. Relegated to the back of the grid, everyone else ripples up a slot, and then a $100,000 fine per entry, no qualifying points for either driver, and both team strategists stood down from the Indy 500 effective immediately. So the penalty became quite a lot harsher. I don't disagree with this. This is a personal opinion here, but I don't disagree with it, because clearly these guys knew what they were up to and they got caught. Simple as that. Also, the thing that I think comes into play is the fact that it's less than 18 months ago that we had the whole push to pass scandal, and it involved exactly the same players. So that's a thing to just keep in mind, the fact that this is not the first infringement inside 18 months. As for McLaughlin, his attenuator was found to be illegal. It was inspected and was impounded, even though he crashed earlier in the day. That was inspected by IndyCar and deemed to be legal. So he starts exactly where he was going to, in the 10th position, the other two to the back of the field. Some people said today, should Jacob Abel be in the race? Well, you can look at both sides of that, but the bottom line fact is that these two go to the back of the field. So it's a a big change to the way the race will play out? Does it affect Newgarden's three-peat chances? Yes, of course it does. But he can still win from there. It's been done before, we know that. So let's just wait and see. But Team Penske certainly in amongst it. No other official statements from Team Penske today. I'm sure there is plenty more to play out, and we'll have plenty more for you in the coming days here on Racing World.